What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, I wanna speak about basketball, professional basketball being scripted, right? And the reason why I recently have I've been thinking about this and coming to this conclusion is basketball. Like I've been watching basketball since 1980, right? That's when Magic and Bird first hit the league, right? And now and each one of these generations to me, like had a storyline. you know um Magic and Bird was all about East Coast, West Coast. The Showtime era versus the Bird and those guys, more blue collar type guys on the East Coast, right? So that was big. That was big for the NBA. And then you had Mike coming behind that, right? And so and Mike, the storyline behind Mike just really took the NBA to a whole nother level, right? And I like to compare Mike. When Mike hit the league, it was like the Godfather one, right? And everything around, and so when you think about all three of the Godfathers, like Godfather one was the best one, in my opinion. And I think in most people's opinion, it was the best one, right? And it was, to me, it was the best one because it was the first one, right? It was like it was a classic automatically. It was a classic because it was the first movie of that kind. Then you have Kobe, the narrative following behind Michael Jordan, and I consider Kobe to be like Godfather too, right? Because Kobe wanted to be exactly like what he saw in Mike, right? And so that narrative behind Kobe was good for the NBA, right? It was good, Kobe trying to catch Mike, Kobe trying to outdo Mike, and that narrative was good, right? But by the time we get to LeBron James, and now you have Godfather 3. Most people don't think that Godfather 3 was as good as Godfather 1 or 2, right? And so I think the NBA realized they probably been realized that they need more than just somebody trying to outdo Mike, trying to outdo Kobe. They need more, right? And so that's why I think that now with social media, it just what goes on the court is not enough. And I realized that I was watching, on YouTube, and I'm watching these open runs like NBA players during the summertime. They go to these, not open runs, they go to these private runs where it's just NBA basketball players practicing against other NBA basketball players. And sometimes you'll have college guys in there, or you might have um just it's by invitation only, right? And I'm watching, and I'm watching because I really love basketball, right? And but it's just, a lot of these gyms, they nice gyms, but it's not as exciting as the NBA, right? Because the NBA is packaged different. You got the lights, and you got the music, and you got all these people in there, and in the venue, and everybody's watching basketball, right? And so I'm saying I will watch these open runs and watch these NBA players and how they play against each other in the summertime, right? Because I'm watching, see who can shoot. I'm looking at people, their footwork, right? And that's because I'm a diehard fan, right? I'm watching people form and how they move without the ball and stuff like that, right? But for the novice fan, the novice fan needs more than that to be attracted to the game. And so that's where all the bells and whistles that come along with watching or going to an NBA game. Like if I took, like, just imagine, like, if you took a date to like a gym to watch a bunch of guys run and play basketball, they not going to be interested in that. But if you go to an NBA game, and where's all the bells and the whistles and the cameras and the lights and stuff like that, that atmosphere is totally different. Then put on top of that the narratives, right? The narratives that come with each, like the storylines and the narratives that come with different players in the league, and so that's what sells. That's what draws in, um, the novice fan, not the hardcore fan, because they already got your money and my money. They already got us locked up. They always got us locked in, right? But that's why, and I say, all right, so basketball got to be scripted because they can't, they won't be able to keep the attention and draw the attention of everybody else. So this whole thing about LeBron James and the GOAT conversation and all that stuff is good for the league because it get people talking and arguing back and forth. No matter how ridiculous you might think this narrative is, some people think that, come on, man, this guy's nowhere near Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, right? But just, and he said this like what in 20, like 10 years ago. He really claimed that he was the GOAT. That's what put him over the top. And ever since then, man, he's been, it's just generating a lot of conversation and content for different for people who do content on these different platforms, right? But now just think about this. If Michael Jordan was playing today and everything that Michael Jordan did during his basketball career, if he was doing that today, it wouldn't be good enough for the NBA. That's just like if Godfather 1 came out today, it wouldn't be as good as it was back when it came out. And the reason for that is we consume information now so much differently than we did, right? Um, back in the day, if you had like today, if you put the movie The Godfather out, even no matter how good the movie is, it won't draw as much interest. It won't be a classic like it was back in the day because people, their attention spans and the way we consume movies and stuff like that is just so much different. People will get a movie or a series and they'll binge watch it, right? And so it's just a whole different time, and that's why the NBA, I think, and ESPN, and all those guys and all those organizations, they just putting together just scripts. And now it was scripted back in the day with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. I believe that, I believe that basketball has always been scripted because it's entertainment. It's entertainment. But now they just need more storylines, more than just what goes on the court, more than just LeBron James trying to chase Michael Jordan or LeBron James trying to chase Kobe Bryant. They need more than just that. So now, we got to get into people's private lives. We got to get into their business affairs. We got to get into like what they're doing off the court and things like that. And there's so much content surrounding each one of these players, man, that everybody is just so much nowadays under so much scrutiny that and I think they feel like it's necessary, like I said, because they need to feel these feed this machine, this social media machine. They would not, like I said, with the Michael Jordan narrative, man, and as great as Mike was, that was good. But they want, what I mean, the machine wants more. And so that's what this generation is all about. So they have to script it and feed people different narratives and stuff in order to keep the NBA alive and to keep people who are not diehard basketball fans, keep them interested, keep them looking at it. And so, when I'm watching these little open runs and watching NBA players play, amongst themselves, and even I have to admit, like, it's not as exciting, even if you see a dunk, you know, um, even when you see like somebody hit a few shots in a row or give somebody a cross up move, for some reason it just don't have that same glamour and that same effect as it do when the big lights is on and everything, right? And so they gotta script it like that. And I think, well, I don't know if they gotta script it like that, but that's what they do. They just really just go into, like I said, they script it. They feed you different storylines, what they think, is going to keep people interested and keep people tuned in and stuff like that. So it's scripted, and people have been saying for years that, even you had basketball players that come out and say, well, it's rigged. Professional athletes have came out and said, you know, we think it's rigged, or we felt like we had to win by 20 points because the was the ref was going against us, and you know they wasn't on our side, so we felt like we had to go out there and blow them out, right? So it's always been that in the back, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent, you know, that it's almost like the WWE, you know, the wrestling. You know, people know that wrestling is scripted, but they still watch it, right? And I guess that'll be the same way for basketball fans, because for basketball, like I said, for diehard fans, certain things you watching the game for anyway, right? And so certain things don't have, so everything on there, it can't be fake, right? But some of it, I think a lot of it is scripted, like the storylines and stuff. You know, they feeding people, right? And so that's my take on it. Like I said, it's scripted. People still gonna watch, even though you know it's becoming more and more obvious that it's scripted. So that's my take. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. With that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.